In a world that never stops testing you mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, some people don't just survive, they rise. They don't wait for the world to be easy. They train their minds to be stronger. What's their secret? It's not luck. It's not talent. It's habits. And today, you'll discover 5 habits that mentally strong people live by, habits that can turn pressure into power and setbacks into fuel. Let's get one thing straight. The world doesn't reward comfort. It rewards courage. And in a time when so many people are chasing shortcuts, applause, and instant gratification, there's a quiet, unshakable power in the people who choose strength. Not just physical strength, not just professional strength, but mental strength, the kind that doesn't make noise, doesn't beg for attention, and doesn't crumble when things get tough. Mentally strong people don't live easier lives, they lead harder ones with purpose. They carry burdens, they walk into storms, and while the rest of the world waits for the perfect conditions, they act, not because they're fearless, but because they've trained their minds to lead, not follow. The good news, mental strength isn't inherited, it's built, it's trained, and it's available to anyone who's willing to adopt the habits that shape it. Let's explore the 5 habits of mentally strong people, habits that separate those who wish from those who win. 1. They take responsibility instead of blame. Mentally strong people don't wait for someone else to fix things. They don't waste energy pointing fingers or crafting excuses. They ask a simple, powerful question: what can I do about this? Whether it's a failure, a setback, or a missed opportunity, they own it. Because ownership creates movement and blame creates paralysis. When you take full responsibility for your attitude, your energy, your growth, you move from victim to leader. And that shift changes everything, too. They do the hard thing first. Mental toughness shows up in the moment you choose discomfort over delay, the hardest call, the toughest workout, the uncomfortable conversation. The early wake up. Mentally strong people have trained themselves to run toward resistance, not because it's fun, but because they know that growth lives there. The longer you avoid what's hard, the longer you stay stuck. The moment you face it head on, everything else starts to feel lighter. That's not just discipline, that's a mindset built for results. 3. They protect their energy like their life depends on it, because it does. Mentally strong people are not available for drama, gossip, or energy leaks. They understand that mental bandwidth is a limited resource, so they guard their environment. They say no. They choose people and spaces that challenge them, inspire them, and keep them aligned. They don't entertain everything. They don't explain everything. They've traded popularity for peace. And in doing so, they gain the clarity needed to focus on what truly matters. 4. They don't react. They respond when the pressure's on, the crowd panics. But mentally strong people pause. They think. They respond with intention, because they've trained their mind to lead their emotions, not the other way around. They understand that emotional mastery doesn't mean you feel less, it means you control more. When people lash out, they listen. When people doubt them, they stay steady. Their calm becomes contagious. Their stillness becomes strength. That's leadership from the inside out. 5. They keep showing up. No matter what. When others stop, they keep going. Not because it's easy, but because their why is stronger than their how. Mentally strong people don't need constant motivation. They've built habits that carry them when the fire fades. They're not chasing perfection. They're chasing consistency. One more rep, one more hour, one more try. That quiet persistence, that relentless ability to keep showing up, is what separates those who dream from those who do. Mentally strong people don't wait around for someone else to take the lead. They don't hand over the steering wheel of their life to circumstances, to other people's decisions, or to bad luck. Instead, they step forward, look the situation in the face, and take responsibility, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's unfair, even when it would be easier to blame someone or something else. That's where their power begins. Ownership is the foundation of mental strength because it eliminates excuses and opens the door to action. It doesn't mean everything is your fault, but it means you are accountable for how you respond to everything. And when you live with that level of personal leadership, you stop feeling like life is happening *to *you, and start realizing life is happening *through *you. Blame is the language of the powerless. It creates a mindset that says, I can't change because someone else is in control. That belief keeps people stuck. It steals time, energy, and growth. People spend years pointing fingers at their parents, their boss, the economy, the system, waiting for someone else to give them permission to move forward. But mentally strong people see the trap in that mindset. They know that every second spent blaming is a second lost that could have been spent building. So they take the hit, take the lesson, and take the responsibility, not because it's easy, but because they've chosen to be in control of their own direction. Taking responsibility doesn't mean pretending everything is okay or ignoring injustice. It means refusing to let pain or adversity define your identity. It means choosing action over victimhood. When you take full ownership of your habits, your decisions, your mindset, you shift from being a reactor to being a creator. You start looking for what you can do instead of dwelling on what went wrong. That shift alone separates people who stay in cycles from those who break through. Mentally strong people know that growth requires brutal honesty. They look at their patterns, not just their problems. They reflect deeply and ask themselves hard questions. What role did I play in this? How can I handle this better next time? What belief is holding me back here? This kind of self-accountability can feel uncomfortable at first, but it's one of the most powerful tools for transformation. It's not about guilt, it's about clarity, because the moment you own your story, you can start rewriting it. Ownership builds trust, not just with others, but with yourself. Every time you take full responsibility for your actions and decisions, you reinforce the belief that you are capable of handling life, no matter how difficult it gets. You stop outsourcing your confidence to other people's validation. You stop waiting for external approval or ideal conditions. You develop an inner strength that says, I've got this. No matter what it looks like right now, I will find a way. That kind of mindset is unshakable, and it's earned through the daily habit of responsibility. People often confuse responsibility with blame, but there's a huge difference. Blame looks backward. It focuses on fault and shame. Responsibility looks forward. It focuses on solutions and growth. That's why mentally strong people don't waste time obsessing over who caused the problem. They invest their energy into figuring out how to rise from it. They take full command of their choices and refuse to let their future be dictated by their past. This habit of ownership also strengthens resilience. When life hits them hard, they don't collapse under pressure. They don't waste time complaining about how unfair it is. They feel the pain, but then they ask, what now? That question, simple but powerful, activates progress. It moves them from stuck to strategic. It turns pain into purpose. Every challenge becomes a training ground, not a dead end. And each time they bounce back, they reinforce the belief that they are stronger than any situation they face. This kind of mindset becomes especially powerful when things fall apart, when plans fail, when people disappoint you, when life throws something unexpected your way. In those moments, you will either react with blame or rise with responsibility. The mentally strong always choose the latter, not because they're invincible, but because they've made a decision. They will not give their power away, not to fear, not to failure, not to anyone who tried to stop them. Taking ownership sharpens focus. It eliminates distractions. It simplifies decisions because you're no longer caught in emotional back and forth or waiting for external rescue. You are leading yourself with intention. You are guiding your mind toward action. You are moving, building, and evolving. Even when it's hard, even when it's slow, even when it's lonely. You've chosen responsibility over resentment. And that single decision becomes the foundation for a life of strength, clarity, and direction. Mentally strong people have mastered something that most people spend their lives avoiding: discomfort. They don't waste time waiting for motivation to show up. They don't sit around hoping for inspiration to strike. They understand that motivation is fleeting, but discipline is dependable. Discipline is not about doing what you feel like doing. It's about doing what you've committed to, regardless of how you feel. It's a quiet promise you make to yourself and keep even when no one is watching. Mentally strong people wake up and choose to take action before their mind has a chance to talk them out of it. They do the hard thing first because they know that everything else gets easier once they've tackled what matters most. They don't avoid hard work, they prioritize it. They train their minds to walk straight into the things that scare them or challenge them, because they've realized that what's uncomfortable is usually what's essential. It's easier to hit snooze. It's easier to procrastinate. It's easier to scroll through your phone and pretend you'll start tomorrow. But mentally strong people know that easy builds regret. They understand that most of the growth, most of the transformation, and most of the confidence they're looking for is buried underneath the things they don't feel like doing. That's why they've developed the habit of doing the hard thing first, because that's the only way to consistently move forward. Mentally strong people start before they're ready. They don't need all the pieces in place. They don't need to feel perfect or confident or fearless. They just need a reason, a purpose strong enough to overcome the pull of comfort. They know that fear often disguises itself as logic, telling you to wait, telling you it's not the right time, telling you you're not good enough yet. But they've learned to act in spite of that voice. They move forward while afraid. They make the call, send the message, take the first step, because doing the thing is the only way to prove that fear wrong. They've taught themselves that action cures anxiety. Progress creates belief, and belief compounds every single day you choose discipline over delay. They treat discipline like a skill, not a personality trait. It's not something you're born with, it's something you build. They build it in the small decisions, the early mornings, the last rep in the gym, the moments when they don't feel like showing up but do it anyway. Over time, that consistency becomes identity. They no longer have to force it. They asterisk it. They become the person who follows through, the person who doesn't quit, the person who does what needs to be done, even when it's boring, uncomfortable, or unseen. And because of that, they keep moving forward long after others have stopped. The world is full of people who want success without struggle, people who want transformation without the work. But mentally strong people accept the trade-off. They know that every breakthrough demands sacrifice. Every level of growth comes with a price tag, and discipline is how you pay that price daily. It's how you buy your future in advance. It's how you build momentum that doesn't depend on your mood. They know that if you only act when you feel good, you'll never get far. But if you act on commitment instead of emotion, you'll achieve things most people only dream of. They also know that discipline isn't about being robotic or extreme. It's about being intentional. It's about recognizing that every decision you make is a vote for the person you're becoming. Mentally strong people cast those votes consistently. They take ownership of their time. They schedule their priorities. They structure their lives in a way that supports their goals, not sabotages them. They eliminate distractions. They reduce friction. They set systems in place so their future self doesn't have to rely on willpower alone. They don't leave things up to chance. They set themselves up to win. When they fall off track, they don't spiral into guilt or shame. They reset quickly. They don't waste days beating themselves up. They understand that perfection isn't the goal, progress is. And progress only happens when you keep showing up. That's why discipline is so powerful. It creates momentum. It keeps the needle moving even when things feel slow. And eventually, that steady effort becomes unstoppable. Not because it's dramatic or exciting, but because it's built on consistency, resilience, and relentless clarity about what matters most. Mentally strong people have chosen the harder path not because they enjoy suffering, but because they've seen what's on the other side of discipline. They've experienced the self-respect that comes from following through, the confidence that grows from being someone who honors their word, the results that come from years of daily, unglamorous effort. They've come to understand that the hard thing is rarely the wrong thing, and that the shortcut almost always leads back to the starting line. So they stay the course, they train the mind, and they do the hard thing first, day after day, choice after choice, until strength is no longer something they chase, but something they asterisk. Mentally strong people don't allow their lives to be consumed by chaos, noise, or people who pull them away from their values. They understand something most people never fully grasp. Energy is finite, focus is fragile, and time is non-refundable. Every time you say yes to something that doesn't serve your growth, your peace, or your mission, you're actually saying no to something that does. That's why mentally strong people set boundaries, not as a form of isolation or arrogance, but as a necessary act of self-leadership. They know that without clear boundaries, everything in life begins to leak. Energy leaks, time leaks, clarity leaks. And when that happens, burnout is inevitable, resentment is guaranteed, and purpose becomes a blur. They don't see boundaries as walls. They see them as filters, filters that protect what matters, filters that keep out what drains, distracts, and diminishes. Mentally strong people have learned, often through hard experience, that not everyone deserves access to their attention. Not every argument deserves a response. Not every invitation deserves a yes. They have understood that people-pleasing is not kindness, it's self-abandonment, and they refuse to live their lives in constant reaction to the demands and expectations of others. Their time is too valuable, their energy is too sacred, their mission is too important. They've learned to say no with clarity instead of saying yes with resentment. They say no to toxic relationships, to energy vampires, to the meetings that don't matter, to the conversations that go nowhere, to the commitments that steal time but add no value. And they do it not to hurt others, but to stay aligned with themselves. Saying no isn't rejection, it's protection. It's protection of goals, dreams, peace of mind, and emotional well-being. They've traded approval for authenticity because they know you can't chase both. And they'd rather disappoint others than betray themselves. This kind of strength doesn't come naturally. It takes courage to draw a line, especially when others don't like it. It takes maturity to stop trying to be everything for everyone. It takes conviction to prioritize what matters over what's popular. But mentally strong people aren't chasing popularity. They're chasing purpose. They're not trying to be liked by everyone. They're trying to live fully, honestly, and intentionally. And that means making peace with the fact that some people won't understand their boundaries, won't respect them, or might even walk away. That's a cost they're willing to pay to stay true to their vision. They structure their days with intention. They protect the first hour of the morning and the last hour of the night. They guard their focus like it's gold because they know distractions are everywhere, and most of them are designed to steal your attention, not earn it. They don't check their phones out of habit. They don't let notifications dictate their mental state. They reclaim their time so they can use it with intention. Whether it's time for deep work, family, health, or stillness, they carve it out with discipline, and they honor it like a commitment. Boundaries aren't just about people, they're also about patterns. Mentally strong people set boundaries with their habits. They stop scrolling when it's time to work. They stop working when it's time to rest. They resist the urge to multitask because they know it fractures attention and weakens output. They draw clear lines between what builds them and what breaks them, and when something crosses that line, they don't justify it, they adjust it. They've realized that a boundary isn't something you explain, it's something you enforce. You don't owe everyone an explanation for how you protect your peace. You don't need permission to say no. You don't need to prove that your priorities are worthy. The mentally strong stop over-explaining and start standing firm. They communicate with clarity, not guilt. They walk away when respect is lost. They don't chase closure. They create it. They don't wait for others to understand. They take responsibility for understanding themselves. This clarity creates space to think, space to breathe, space to grow. Because when your life is filled with everything, you're left with nothing that truly matters. Boundaries create margin, and margin creates room for excellence. Room to do the deep work, room to build meaningful relationships, room to rest, reset, and reconnect with purpose. Mentally strong people build this room by design, not by accident. They don't wait for a breakdown to start protecting their peace. They don't need to hit burnout to finally start saying no. They act early. They protect proactively. They build lives that support strength, not just demand it. The more they honor their boundaries, the more their confidence grows. Because every no reinforces a bigger yes, a yes to values, yes to vision, yes to inner peace. Boundaries remind them that they are in charge of their life. They get to choose what stays and what goes. They get to curate their circle, their environment, and their energy. And that power, when claimed consistently, transforms everything. While most people spend their lives reacting to the world around them, mentally strong people take a different path. They don't allow outside events to dictate their inner peace. They don't give away control of their emotions to situations they cannot predict or people they cannot control. Instead, they operate from the inside out. Emotional control is not about being numb or suppressing feelings. It's about choosing to respond with intention rather than react with impulse. It's understanding that your emotions are valid, but they're not always right. Mentally strong people feel deeply, but they don't let their feelings hijack their judgment. They've learned to pause between stimulus and response, and in that space they find their power. They've realized that when you react, you're a slave to the moment. When you respond, you're the master of it. That pause, that breath, that moment of restraint, it's where wisdom lives. Emotional control isn't about being calm because life is easy. It's about being calm despite the chaos. It's about standing in the storm without becoming the storm. That level of composure doesn't come naturally. It's built, trained, and reinforced over time through moments of friction and stress. The mentally strong embrace those moments as training grounds. They don't avoid hard conversations. They prepare for them. They don't suppress frustration. They redirect it. They don't pretend things don't bother them. They choose how to respond in a way that aligns with who they want to be. This strength is forged through intentional self-awareness. Mentally strong people check in with themselves. They recognize the early signs of emotional escalation, the rising heart rate, the tightening chest, the clenched jaw. And rather than letting those signals trigger impulsive reactions, they use them as data. They ask, why am I feeling this? What is this emotion trying to tell me? What outcome do I want here? That reflection allows them to choose their next move rather than letting their emotions make the decision for them. They don't lash out in anger or shrink in fear. They hold the emotion, study it, and decide how to proceed in a way that reflects strength, not insecurity. They've also learned that emotional control doesn't mean avoiding emotions. It means leading them. It means being honest about what they feel but not letting those feelings write the script. They know that fear will try to shrink them, anger will try to mislead them, and sadness will try to paralyze them. But rather than surrendering to those emotions, they name them, sit with them, and lead themselves forward. Emotional maturity is the ability to feel fully without losing clarity. Mentally strong people know that the strongest version of themselves is the one who can remain grounded even in the middle of emotional turbulence. They've trained themselves to choose the long-term win over the short-term release. It might feel good in the moment to yell, to blame, to explode, to retreat, but mentally strong people know that those choices often create regret. They've chosen to rise above impulse. They've chosen to play the long game. They choose dignity over drama, solutions over shouting, understanding over assumption, and every time they do that, they gain more command over their emotional state. That command gives them an edge in relationships, leadership, decision-making, and conflict resolution. They also understand that emotions are contagious. The way they manage their emotions affects how others feel, react, and perform. That's why they don't just control emotions for their own benefit. They do it for those around them. They bring calm into chaos. They bring stability into tension. They choose to be the thermostat, not the thermometer. While others reflect the temperature of the room, mentally strong people set it. They set the tone in meetings, in arguments, in uncertainty. They don't mirror negativity, they model composure. That's leadership in its purest form. This emotional strength gives them the ability to stay focused under pressure. When others are distracted by fear, mentally strong people stay connected to the mission. When others panic, they get clear. When others freeze, they take action. Their emotional control becomes a competitive advantage. It allows them to navigate uncertainty with confidence and remain resilient in the face of adversity. They don't let outside noise dictate inner voice. They stay rooted in values, anchored by vision, and grounded in truth. They understand that emotions are messengers, not dictators. They've built a system to process them. They journal, reflect, meditate, and breathe. They create space for stillness so they can return to clarity. They practice silence, not as an escape, but as a strategy. In that silence, they recalibrate. They remind themselves of who they are, what they stand for, and how they want to lead. That's how they show up with emotional intelligence, not emotional chaos. That's how they remain steady when the ground shakes. That's how they continue forward with conviction while others are stuck in reaction. Mentally strong people understand a truth that eludes many. Intensity might spark the fire, but consistency keeps it burning. They don't chase short-lived surges of energy that burn bright and disappear. They build sustainable habits that carry them forward even when the spark is gone. They don't rely on motivation because they know it's fickle. Some days it shows up. Most days it doesn't. Instead, they lean on rhythm, on structure, on showing up regardless of how they feel. That's the quiet strength behind every remarkable life. not massive leaps, but deliberate, repeated steps. Consistency is their secret weapon. It's how they turn effort into excellence. They understand that true growth isn't sexy. It's not about grand, visible achievements every day. It's about doing the unseen work when no one's watching. It's about waking up early to train the body, reading one more page when the mind is tired, sending the follow-up email, reviewing the plan again, having the uncomfortable conversation, and choosing the salad over the shortcut. Over and over and over again, because they've realized that what you do occasionally shapes moments, but what you do consistently shapes your identity. They aren't obsessed with outcomes. They are obsessed with systems. They trust the process more than they chase the prize. Instead of getting overwhelmed by the size of the mountain, they commit to the next step. Every day, they don't measure progress by intensity, but by momentum. They know that even 1% better today leads to exponential change tomorrow. And in a world addicted to speed, shortcuts, and hacks, they've chosen patience. They've chosen the long road. They've chosen mastery over mediocrity. Because they understand that anything built fast can fall fast, but anything built consistently becomes unshakable. Mentally strong people respect the compound effect. They know that consistency compounds in every area of life, whether it's fitness, finances, relationships, or self-belief. They understand that if you water the right habits daily, those habits will eventually yield fruit beyond what you imagined. But if you neglect them, even slightly, repeatedly, they deteriorate. So they show up even when it's inconvenient. They execute even when it's boring. They commit even when results are invisible. Because they've learned that consistency isn't about feeling inspired. It's about being aligned with your future self. They don't need external validation to stay on track. Their accountability comes from within. They aren't trying to impress others. They're working to outgrow their previous self. That internal standard keeps them grounded, and it keeps them honest. Even when no one's watching, they keep promises to themselves. Even when no one applauds, they keep putting in the work. Because they know the most powerful transformation happens in silence. That's where confidence is built, not in the spotlight, but in the shadows of daily discipline. They also know that consistency requires systems. Willpower alone isn't enough, so they build routines that support success, morning rituals that set the tone, evening practices that reinforce reflection, boundaries that eliminate distractions, environments that nudge behavior in the right direction. They make it easy to do the right thing and hard to do the wrong thing. They automate what they can. They simplify what they must. Because they know that when structure is strong, discipline becomes easier. But consistency doesn't mean perfection. Mentally strong people give themselves grace. They know they'll miss a day, make a mistake, fall off track. And when that happens, they don't spiral. They don't let one misstep become a meltdown. They bounce back quickly. They understand that resilience isn't about never failing. It's about never staying down. They recommit without shame. They reset without drama. And that ability to return again and again makes them unstoppable. Their focus is on asterisk, the person they are becoming. Asterisk, not just the tasks they are doing. Every action, no matter how small, becomes a vote for the identity they're building. Writing one page today means I'm a writer. Showing up at the gym means I'm disciplined. Saying no to distractions means I respect my vision. Over time, those votes create momentum. That momentum builds belief. And that belief fuels consistency even more. They understand the power of rhythm in life. Just like nature has seasons, they have their own cycles. Some days they go hard, some days they go slow, but they never stop moving. They don't wait for the perfect conditions. They work through the imperfect ones. They embrace boredom because they know it's often a sign that they're doing the right thing repeatedly. They lean into repetition. They find pride in it. They don't chase new for the sake of novelty. They chase progress for the sake of purpose. And because of this, they become dependable, not just to others, but to themselves. Their self-trust grows every time they follow through. Their confidence grows every time they show up. They no longer wonder if they're capable. They know it because they've proven it in the small moments, in the daily reps, in the quiet acts of consistency that, when added together, build an extraordinary life. Mentally strong people understand that setbacks are not signs to stop but signals to shift. They've learned, often the hard way, that life does not follow a predictable script. Plans fall apart. Expectations go unmet. People disappoint. Circumstances change in a blink. And in the middle of this chaos, what separates the mentally strong from the rest isn't that they avoid adversity. It's that they evolve through it. They don't crumble when things go wrong. They rise. They adapt. They take the hit, reassess, and find a new path forward. Resilience isn't just something they possess. It's something they've trained through every hardship, every failure, and every detour that tried to knock them off course. They understand that life will punch you in the gut when you least expect it. But what defines their strength is how they respond in those moments. Instead of asking, "Why me?" they ask, "What now?" They don't waste energy blaming circumstances or complaining about fairness. They accept reality without surrendering to it. That's a subtle but powerful difference. They refuse to be victims of their environment. Instead, they become architects of their response. That mindset allows them to navigate change with a level of calm that most people lose in the face of uncertainty. While others panic, they pivot. While others freeze, they find movement. They use every challenge as an opportunity to build new strength. Mentally strong people aren't naive about hardship. They don't sugarcoat it. They don't pretend everything happens for a reason. But they believe that everything can be used for growth, if you choose to learn from it. They see pain as a teacher, not a punishment. Every failure gives them feedback. Every loss sharpens their clarity. Every delay builds their patience. Every betrayal deepens their discernment. They don't waste pain. They transform it, and through that transformation, they become more agile, more wise, and more grounded. One of the most powerful traits of mentally strong people is their emotional flexibility. They don't get stuck in one way of thinking. They allow themselves to shift perspective, to reframe their situation, to see possibility even when all they feel is pressure. That doesn't mean they deny reality. It means they stay open to it. They realize that how they interpret adversity often determines whether it defeats them or develops them. Instead of obsessing over what they can't control, they double down on what they can. Their mindset becomes their anchor. Even when everything around them changes, that internal compass keeps them centered. They're not attached to one path, one timeline, or one method. They have vision, but they're flexible with how they get there. If plan A fails, they don't shut down. They move to plan B or C or Z if they have to. Their commitment is to the outcome, not the route. That gives them power. Because while the rigid break, the flexible bend and bounce back. Mentally strong people understand that adapting is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of intelligence. It's a survival skill, and it's a leadership trait. The world changes fast. Those who can't adapt get left behind. But those who can shift and evolve become unstoppable. This ability to adapt is rooted in self-trust. They believe in their capacity to figure things out, even when the answers aren't obvious. That inner faith gives them permission to take risks, to experiment, to fail forward. They're not paralyzed by uncertainty because they've built resilience through experience. They've been through storms and come out stronger. They know how to take a loss without losing themselves. That gives them courage others envy. They also surround themselves with people who challenge them to think differently. They don't just seek comfort, they seek growth. And growth often means letting go of what once worked. That takes humility. The mentally strong are willing to let go of old identities, outdated strategies, and expired expectations if it means evolving into a stronger version of themselves. They're not afraid of change, they embrace it. Because they know the only way to thrive long-term is to keep learning, keep moving, and keep growing. They prepare for disruption rather than fear it. They create space in their lives to reflect, to adjust, to recalibrate. Whether it's a journal, a long walk, a quiet morning, or a deep conversation, they build in time to process change rather than react blindly to it. That clarity becomes their foundation. So when life throws a curveball, they're not caught off guard. They're ready. They've already trained their minds to expect change. That doesn't make the pain disappear, but it does make them more capable of handling it. They don't seek perfection. They seek progress. Mentally strong people don't need everything to go according to plan to stay committed. They accept detours as part of the journey. They measure their success not just by results, but by their ability to stay in the game when the game changes. That level of adaptability becomes a superpower. It allows them to build lives, careers, and relationships that are rooted in resilience rather than resistance. They flow with change without losing direction. They pivot with purpose. They adjust without abandoning what matters. And through that adaptability, they unlock potential that rigid thinking would never allow.